today's session on connective tissue. Connective tissue is nothing but it is general type of tissue. It connects the special elements which are present in the tissue body. See, for example, this is one special element and this is another special element. In between these two, there will be some binding agent. That binding agent is nothing but connective tissue. So, in between these two special elements, there will be binding element. This binding element what we are calling connective tissue. This connective tissue binds, as name implies, it connects and it supports and it protects the elements which are present in the tissue. That means these are the special elements. These special elements are connected by, are bind by, are supported by, are protected by this tissue. So this tissue what we are calling connective tissue. Connective tissue contains two main components. Those are cellular components, that means cells, and extracellular component. Cellular component and extracellular component. This extracellular component further classified or further divided into two types. One is fibrous element and non-fibrous element. Fibrous element nothing but it contains fibers. What are the fibers? Collagen fibers, elastic fibers and reticular fibers. These fibers included in the fibrous elements. Then what about non-fibrous elements? Non-fibrous element is nothing but ground substance. These are the components of connective tissue. So when we are discussing about the connective tissue, we have to discuss about connective tissue cells, connective tissue fibers and ground substance. Actually our connective tissue we can compare with concrete. Concrete we can use as roof or we can use as beam. This concrete or this roof connecting the walls, and if you take the beam is connecting the basement and walls. So if you take the concrete made up of, what are these? Rods. Of course these rods are interconnected. Along with rods there will be stones. So imagine these are stones. And there will be mixture of water, sand and cement. So here there will be mixture of water, sand and cement. So if we compare with this concrete with our connective tissue, how can we compare? Here stones are there. These stones are resembling connective tissue cells. Here rods are there. These rods are resembling with our connective tissue fibers. And here mixture of water, sand and cement that resembles the ground substance. This is the brief introduction about connective tissue and what are the different components which are present in the connective tissue. Now we will discuss one by one what are the different connective tissue cells and what are the different connective tissue fibers and what is ground substance. So let me remove this. Now we will discuss about connective tissue cells. This is the first component which is present within the connective tissue. Within this connective tissue cells, first one is fibroblast. They are irregular in shape and they are having branching process. These are the process, they are branched. These cells are flattened cells. Of course they are containing nucleus. If you see in the profile view, they are fusiform in shape. This is the structure of fibroblast. These fibroblasts are stem cells for the connective tissue because they can produce ground substance and they can produce collagen fibers, they can produce elastic fibers and they can produce reticular fibers. So fibroblast we can also call as stem cells for the connective tissue. And you can see other type of cells which are present in the connective tissue. Those cells are resembling the fibroblast but with little cytoplasm and they are inactive. So inactive fibroblast containing little cytoplasm or scanty cytoplasm, what we are calling fibrosites. Fibroblasts will be converting into the fibrosites. When they become inactive, fibroblast we are no more calling as fibroblast, we are calling as fibrosites. Then some other type of cells will be there. They are similar to the fibroblast but they produce reticular fibers. Those type of cells what we are calling reticulocytes or reticular cells. According to some authors, these fibroblasts only will produce the reticular fibers. The cells which are producing the reticular fibers, those cells what we are calling reticulocytes. This is about the fibroblasts. Then next type of cell is macrophages. macrophages. If you take the structure of macrophage, there are two types actually. One is fixed or resting macrophages and another type are free or wandering macrophages. If you take fixed macrophages, they are irregular in shape and they contains rounded nucleus and cytoplasm will be darkly stained. Then if you take the free macrophages, these free macrophages are also irregular in shape. Then nucleus will be there, no? The nucleus which is present within the macrophages, that nucleus is present eccentrically. So eccentrically placed nucleus. That nucleus also reniform in shape. That means kidney shaped nucleus. And cytoplasm contains granules. Then what is the function of macrophage? Actually we have seen structure of macrophages. What is the function of macrophage? These are phagocytic in nature. Whenever any microorganism or any foreign body enters into the body, these macrophages will reach to the particular site of infection and they will engulf microorganisms. Imagine this is microorganism or foreign particle. These macrophages will reach us here and they engulf. They will engulf the microorganism. That means they will eat up like this. So this macrophages acting as monocellular phagocytic system because these foreign bodies are phagocytosed by these macrophages. So macrophages are included in the mononuclear phagocytic system. Then in other case, see here, this is smaller microorganism so that this macrophage can engulf or it can eat up. But if there is larger microorganism, what is the fate of it? This larger microorganism is there but macrophage is smaller. That time number of macrophages will be united. See here, this is one macrophage, this is one macrophage, this is one macrophage, this is one macrophage and this is also another macrophage. They contains nucleus. Here foreign particle is very large. That's what all these macrophages will be united and becomes the multinucleated giant cell. Giant means big cell. So all these macrophages are united and became very big cell containing more nuclei. This cell what we are calling multinucleated giant cell. So after it becomes very large, then this cell can engulf this larger foreign body or larger microorganism. Because of this, macrophages are included in the defensive mechanism. This is about macrophages. Next we will discuss about next cell, that is mast cell. Actually macrophages we can also call as histiocytes. We can also call as plasmatocytes. Don't confuse if they ask what is plasmatocyte. Plasmatocyte is nothing but macrophage only. Histiocyte means macrophage only. If we take the next cell, mast cell. Mast cells are rounded cells and they contain small nucleus in the center and they contains secretory granules, coerce secretory granules. And at the periphery of this cell we can see some modified microvilli. Some modified microvilli, what we are calling philopodia or pseudopodia. This modified microvilli, what we are calling philopodia or pseudopodia. Larger cells, smaller nucleus will be present. Within the cytoplasm, coerce secretory granules are present. These coerce secretory granules secreting what or storing what? Mainly heparin and histamine. Actually along with heparin and histamine, these cells can produce serotonin and can help in the production of hyaluronic acid. Heparin is anticoagulant, histamine is vasodilator. So these secretions will be released whenever there is hypersensitivity reactions or allergic reactions and also in the inflammatory reactions, right? So in the inflammation and anaphylactic reactions, these secretions will be released. This is about mast cell. Very simple. Larger cells, smaller nucleus contains coerce granules and pseudopodia or philopodia secretes histamine and heparin. These cells present around the blood vessels. So that is about mast cells. Next cell is plasma cell. Plasma cell. Actually plasma cells are derived from the B lymphocytes. When the body infected with any infection, B lymphocytes will be converted into plasma cells. Those plasma cells will produce antibodies. Plasma cells are irregular in shape and they contains nucleus. So nucleus is present at the periphery. That means eccentrically placed nucleus. Nucleus is placed at the periphery or at one side of the cell. So this is eccentrically placed nucleus. Nucleus contains heterochromatin. That heterochromatin placed as 4 to 5 clumps. 4 to 5 clumps. This is one clump. This is one clump. This is one clump. Like this, 4 to 5 clumps will be present at the periphery of the nucleus. There will be heterochromatin. This heterochromatin arranged in the form of 4 to 5 clumps. Because of this heterochromatin clumps, nucleus is appearing as cartwheel. So plasma cell contains nucleus with cartwheel appearance. Within the cytoplasm of plasma cell, there will be storage of antibodies, because plasma cells will be producing the antibodies. Those antibodies will be stored within the plasma cell. So these are the antibodies. Within the plasma cell, if the antibodies are present, we are no more calling as antibodies. We are calling as Russell's bodies. These bodies, what we are calling? Russell's bodies. This is about plasma cell. Very simple, irregular in shape, eccentrically placed nucleus with cartwheel appearance. Because heterochromatin arranged in 4 to 5 clumps. That's what nucleus is appearing as cartwheel. Within the plasma cell, we can find stored antibodies. Those antibodies, what we are calling Russell's bodies. Clear? That is plasma cell. Next, we will discuss about fat cell. Let me remove this. Next cell is fat cell. Fat cell. We can also call as adipocytes. What is the structure of adipocytes? Adipocytes are signet ring shaped cells. What does it mean? If we take the ring, we can see the ring like this. This is the arch and we can see stone here. Right? So this is signet ring. If we take the fat cell surrounded by plasma membrane. So this is plasma membrane. And these cells are filled with fat droplet. So here I am drawing fat droplet. This is fat droplet. Actually it is very large fat droplet. Because of this large fat droplet, cytoplasm of this fat cell is pushed towards the periphery and it is forming as one rim of the cytoplasm. And because of the same fat droplet, nucleus also will be pushed towards the periphery. So nucleus will be present here and it is oval nucleus. Is it similar to this? That's what fat cells are, signet ring shaped cells. What is the function of fat cell? Storage of fat. Fat will be stored within the fat cells or adipocytes. Next cells which we are going to discuss are pigmented cells. Pigmented cells. Cells are flattened and contains branching process. So cell will be like this. Flattened cells will be there. These flattened cells shows process. Those processes are branching in nature. That means branching process will be present. These cells contains nucleus and granules which contains melanin. That means it contains pigmented granules. These are the pigmented granules. These pigmented granules contains brown color pigment called melanin. This is about pigmented cells. We can also call it as melanocytes. See here, flattened cells contains irregular and branching cytoplasmic extinctions. We can also call it as processes. Branching processes are present and they contains granules. These granules are filled with pigment. So these granules what we are calling pigmented granules. Which pigment is present? Brown color pigment will be there. That brown color pigment what we are calling melanin. This is about pigmented cells. Then there will be some other pigmented cells. Those pigmented cells will not produce melanin, but those cells containing pigment. How come? See here. This is the cell with nucleus. Actually this cell will not produce any pigment, but this cell contains pigment. How come? See here. This cell engulfs the pigment which is produced by the other cells. So it contains pigment. Those type of cells what we are calling chromatophores or melanophores. Chromatophores are nothing but they will not produce pigment. They will be engulfing in the pigment which will be produced by the another cells. Those cells what we are calling chromatophores or melanophores. Next cells which we have to discuss, mesenchymal cells. Mesenchymal cells. Mesenchymal cells. Mesenchymal cells are smaller cells and they contain processes. These processes are branching in nature and these branches will be anastomosing with the processes of other mesenchymal cells. Mesenchymal cells will be present in the embryonic tissues or in the mesoderm. These cells can produce any type of cells. Actually, these are like stem cells. This is about mesenchymal cells. Some other cells also present in the connective tissue. Actually, they are migrated from the blood to the connective tissue. So those are mainly WBC cells. Here we no need to discuss about the WBC cells, but I will tell you very briefly about the lymphocytes. Lymphocytes having the plasma membrane, very large nucleus and peripherally arranged rim of cytoplasm. Because large nucleus is present, that's what cytoplasm is formed as rim surrounding the nucleus of the cell or beneath the plasma membrane. Of course, lymphocytes also part of the defense mechanism. There is another cell which we have to discuss under connective tissue cells, that is perisite. These cells are present in relation with the capillaries and small venules. See here, this is one capillary. Of course, capillaries are lined by endothelial cells. So these are the endothelial cells. Surrounding the endothelial cells, there will be lightly stained cells. Those cells, what we are calling perisites. Imagine this is perisite and it contains processes. What is the function of it? During wound healing, they can differentiate into smooth muscle cells, fibroblast and myofibroblasts. This is about perisites. Now we will discuss about connective tissue fibers. Till now, we have discussed about connective tissue cells. That means cellular component of connective tissue. Now we are going to discuss about extracellular component of connective tissue.